Hi everyone, my name's Nigel Tye from Growth Evolution Coaching. I am now going to be on the Online Prosperity Show with Prosper here. I'm a master coach and I help people and I help leaders and I help create teams and I build wealth in your business and in your life. And I look forward to meeting you during this episode.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we have a real-life superhero joining us today. Nigel, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, sir. Thank you.
Absolutely. Apparently, most superheroes don't wear capes, right? And you're proof positive that that is an actual thing. Well, for those that are watching right now, you might be wondering, why am I calling Nigel a real life superhero? First of all, Nigel served as a medic in the British Royal Air Force for 25 years, including a crucial role as a senior medical operations manager for the London Olympics in 2012. Now he's a Master Transformational Life Coach, specializing in leadership, teams, and culture for business. Now, Nigel, first of all, thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
Absolutely. It is a pleasure to have you on the show. Tell our audience why I've just called you a superhero.
Well, I don't know. I was very much responsible all of my career for looking after soldiers and their families. And my final role for the last sort of 5 years was really specializing in what we call Aeromed, which is over here your RFDS service. So I was the like the MASH helicopter medic that was going out to the frontline battlefields and picking people up and bringing them back on their journey through their whole pathway really back to the UK and being treated in the UK and moving forward in their lives.
Absolutely. I've seen people like you in movies only, and you're holding the drip and you're telling the guy, hold on, soldier, hold on, we're going to make it. And, you know, it takes a lot to be there for somebody else. Tell us, you know, some of the incidents that you had to go and recover, people that had, you know, been in the battlefield.
I mean, everything from, you know, you get the helicopter, you get the call, and it was, you know, we would provide like a golden 10 minutes rather than over here with the ambulance service, a golden hour they call for treating people. That's how good the service was. So, you know, they would always have like a field medic that would be out on the patrol with the guys, and they would be able to do the sort of the initial treatments and whatever. But then they would call in the specialists. So we would go out right to the front line battlefields, pick up the guys off the battlefield, literally doing, you know, the trauma stuff in the back of the helicopters, back down to sort of Bastion or Kandahar, wherever we were in Afghan when I served there, and then treating them in the hospitals there to stabilize them. And then the other part of the role was getting them from a theatre back to the UK for their onward care, back to their families, back to their loved ones, back to safety. And funny enough, my role, even though when I was in Afghan, I was doing that frontline stuff, my role in the UK was actually managing that whole hospital transportation system. So I was the operations manager in charge at Birmingham Air Hospital. We had a team of 12 people working 24/7, and I ran that for 5 years. And yeah, rather intense, for bringing something like 220 casualties we average per month, from twisted ankles through to triple amputees. And having them their initial trauma treatment, you know, getting their prosthetics and hopefully walking out of the hospital at the end of it. So yeah, it was a privilege.
Fantastic. I mean, obviously, it takes a redemptive amount of care, and just, were you warned what you were going to step into, or would you have to deal with it as soon as you jump out of the plane?
Bit of both, really. You know, you'd get the trauma call, and someone would say, you know, an IED explosion. It would be very basic, but you knew the repetitiveness, if you know what I mean. Unfortunately, there was far too many of them. You knew what you were going to, and so you were geared to almost know what you were going to see when you got there. and you take almost the personality out of it, if you know what I mean. It's just, let's deal with the injuries, let's deal with the trauma. We're not with the casualty long enough at that point before bringing them back to the follow-up surgical teams back at the hospitals. But then again, my role was from taking them from either Bastion up to Kandahar, depending on where the clinical need was for the casualty. But then it was from Kandahar back to the UK, which was actually to my team that I managed. So I get to meet my own guys. And having their onward care. So we would arrange their consultant, their bed space, their first operational theatres, the welfare for informing their families that they're coming back. So we obviously looked after the family care and welfare. So yeah, you became totally involved with that soldier or the service person's career really and life. It was it was hard work, but when the mentality of these lads were okay, I can't do that, so what am I going to do next? Some of the trauma consultants would literally say, I'm sorry, young man, you're not going to walk again. And they would automatically swear, shall we say, at the consultant and go sort of, up you, if you know what I mean. I'll walk out of this place in a couple of months' time. And they did, because it was a totally different mentality from a service person being injured to a young 16-year-old civilian who'd come off his motorbike and lost a leg, who are like, okay, what am I entitled to now? These words were a completely different mentality of like, okay, well, I can't do X, I'll do Y. So they were always driven to where the next. It was a pleasure to treat them, because if you told them to do an hour's rehab, they'd do 3.
Right. And you also had to have this psychology around, first of all, when you're holding that drip for them and you're telling them it's gonna be okay, and maybe they're about to give up, you had to assume the role of the person that told them not to give up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, because they sometimes, an IED, say, has gone off. They haven't got a clue what's just happened. They don't even know technically what injuries they have. It's everybody else around them that's panicking, if you know what I mean, or trying to deal with what's arisen. The person themselves is almost helpless, and sometimes from the shock, comatose, unconscious at the time. And the next thing is, they come and get treated by us. We sedate them for the helicopter trip back. They go through surgeries. They're then brought back maybe as an ICU patient, intensive care in the back of the aircraft back to the UK. They might wake up a week later in a bed in Birmingham, in the UK, with their mum holding their hand beside and going, how the hell did I get here? So it was that mental trauma for the lads as well. And would you believe, what some of the first things they would say to mothers, grandmothers, whoever was sitting by the bed is, they would be embarrassed that they had got injured and let their team down. Not the fact they've lost their legs. It was the fact that actually I put my team at risk because I was silly enough to get injured. So it's almost like, when can I go back? It's like, sorry, mate, you're not going to be going. But it's that team mentality and the brotherhood that's so ingrained when you're in that type of area that, okay, well, if there's a team of 6 and I've let them down because I'm down, they're more at risk because I'm not there. So you had to deal. That was a lot of the psychology, that it wasn't necessarily about them.
Absolutely. I quite like that selfless thing that, the boys that serve actually possess. Now, there's also another character in all of this, because you also had to look after the families, when they came to see these people for the very first time. Now, when they would have said goodbye to their son or their brother or husband, that person would have been walking on all 2 or sane and everything else. And now they're coming to see them maybe after 6 months or 9 months or a year. And, they're not as the person that walked away and they waved goodbye to. What sort of process did you sort of have with the loved ones of these people that you had care of?
That was something that obviously developed over a period of time and got better and better. When it initially happened and the numbers of casualties, as we spoke about earlier, we hadn't had casualties like that since sort of World War I and II, on a regular basis for an extended period of time. So a lot of the infrastructures were made up as time went on, and they got better and better, and it was amazing what the guys got in the end. But yeah, we had small accommodations for the families so they could stay and be able to visit. We end up sort of getting some welfare houses in the area. We had to feed them, look after them, transport for them. But it was, again, it was allowing them, we had some welfare officers who would allow them time to speak about their concerns and worries, because they were, even though they didn't have the injuries, there was an impact on them, their family and their life, and how they're going to cope looking after or supporting their husband, their boyfriend or whatever, or their son as they move forward in life. It's a trauma that, although physically affects the soldier, it has a massive knock-on families and children.
Absolutely. All right. So we've spoken about the soldier and their family and their kids and everybody else that's connected to them. How about Nigel? He's just doing his job.
I think for me, it was, you spend your whole career to be the professional that you are. I'd served for 25 years. And when you serve in GP practices, people have come in, I've had a cold for 3 weeks, the doctor's 10 minutes late and they're complaining. Whereas these lads had definitely injuries that needed your attention, and they were apologizing for being an inconvenience and being silly enough to get hurt. And it's like, shit, totally disproportionate. So it was an honor almost to treat them. And yeah, I was doing 80-hour weeks for 5 years looking after these lads, because the aircraft would come in 24/7. We land at Birmingham Airport, International Airport at 1 o'clock in the morning. You had to be there. I could be unloading 20 casualties and transporting them and distributing them around 5-6 different hospitals that we utilised, depending on the clinical need for the casualty. But for me, I couldn't affect the fact they got injured. I couldn't affect how they were treated in the back of the aircraft, and I couldn't affect their long-term health. But the only way I could compartmentalize it to know that I was being the best person and treatment and professional for them was when they were in my care, could I honestly say they got the best of me? Did they get the gold standard service? And I think that was the only way I could manage it. Yes, certain stories, affect you when you get to meet the families and you get to see these guys over a long period of time, because they would be in the hospitals for months sometimes. And they'd be in one bed where you put someone else in the next bed the next day. And then the day after that, you're back in seeing them again. So, you almost had your long-term, your medium-term and your short-term. And so you became involved in all of their care pathway. And you end up building strong relationships with some of these guys. So I think it was just, again, knowing their pathway, being involved and seeing them progress to walk out on their prosthetics or with their families a lot healthier, a lot more human than they were when I first met them, was an honor. So for me, as long as I knew that I'd done the best for them, that's the best I could hope for. So, yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, obviously, you did mention that these guys were really motivated, and even if the trauma specialist would tell them maybe you would never be able to run as fast as you wanted to, they would say, no, I'm going to do this. And, they would work extra hard to be able to achieve that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was, they would be told by the physios and everything else that to build the muscles back up in their legs or to get the strength to have the prosthetic, that they had to do an hour in the physio. These guys didn't know anything else. They're going to do 3. We had to build another gym because there was so many people, they wouldn't leave. So, from day one, it's like, okay, if I can't do X, I'll do Y. What's my next goal? What's my next drive? What's my next purpose? How can I make a difference somewhere else? How can I get better quickly for my family? So their focus and their drive as a service person is just never give up. So some of the stories, they're greater than I will ever have in my career, and I've had a hell of a career. But yeah, to know that I've had an effect on that at some point, it was made my career well worthwhile.
Absolutely. Well, like you said, these lads never knew when to stop. Some of them just kept running and running and running,
Yep.
and they ended up at the Olympics, and they just kept going, and nobody could actually stop them. I think that is a really good turn of events, because there's always a silver lining on every cloud. But the best part is you actually had front row seats to be able to watch them run and celebrate at the Olympics. Now, tell us about your experience as senior medical operations manager for the London 2012 Olympics.
Yeah, I mean, that was a hell of a gig to have as a first civilian role when I left the service. So I left the service sort of January 2011. I went traveling with my wife for a little while to have that downtime to find out who Nigel was post-service and decommission myself, if you know what I mean. And I knew there was a lot more to me than the soldier that I'd been for 25 years, and I'd always worn a uniform every day. It's like, when I get up in the morning, what am I going to put on? But yeah, so I got the job in the Olympics originally as a venue manager. So I would have run the opening stadium, if you know what I mean, or the swimming pool or the velodrome. So I'd been brought on a year before. Myself and the guy who was my boss were going around and briefing all of the sites and all of the sports on what medical services would be provided, how we would help them in an emergency, what it would look like, how to get hold of us, all the operational stuff. And then fortunately and unfortunately, my boss was offered a civilian role, which was his ideal job, about 2 months before the games. And they said, look, we can't wait till the games are over. You either take it now or you don't. So he had no choice after all his work to take the role, because it was a future role. And because I had the relationships with all the venues and all the staff and all the sports, I got stepped up, if you know what I mean, to the main role. And it was like, oh shit, yeah, thanks. So yeah, I was privy to the opening ceremony. I dealt with 10 different stadiums. I did all of the park as well. We had 250,000 visitors a day that we were responsible for clinically, to make sure we had first aid and trauma services available in the stadiums and around the park. So yeah, it was a rather big job. But yeah, from a service stroke military perspective, I also did the Paralympics. And it was really funny almost watching, because I had been the leader, if you know what I mean, and the main guy. I had the Willy Wonka golden ticket. I could get access to everywhere. And a lot of the military lads, when they were told that, you're going to be a paraplegic or whatever, you've lost a leg, you've lost this, you're never going to do anything. And their mentality was, well, sod you, I will do whatever it takes to be the best version of myself as I am now. So a lot of them went into sports, whether it be weightlifting, whether it be into running, whether it be into whatever. And I had the privilege that a lot of the British Paralympic team were the lads that I brought off the back of the aircraft in trauma bandages 3-4 years later. We're now competing for Britain in the Paralympics with the 3 lions on their shirt rather than medals, and winning medals. And it was just an honor, really, to see that level of growth, that someone wouldn't give up and they wanted more for themselves. And it also, for what I do now as a coach, it's an amazing story of like, well, you think you've had problems. Look at these lads. You have the choices. You have whatever you want to claim as your purpose is achievable. And yeah, it's inspirational stories, really, going, actually, well, my little problems, my little limiting beliefs really don't really matter, do they? Come on, just tackle it. So again, using those stories not as a weapon, but as a motivation for people to make the changes that they need to make to become these medalists in their own lives, really.
Absolutely. And I quite like how this actually has somewhat of a happy ending, because most of the people you would have seen 4 years prior, and they've gone on to do something for themselves, and they're still representing the country in a whole different capacity, and kudos to them. But what made you transition? Because you said you took a year off to decommission yourself and just to go find yourself, so to speak. Why coaching?
Well, when you're in the military, it's really funny that everyone thinks it's yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full, so I jump when I tell you. Yeah, there's an element of that, of course there is. But when you become a senior, and I was a flight sergeant when I left, you end up becoming like the welfare for your troops. You become their father and dad away from home. You are their career coach, but also their career assessor. You are their welfare coach, their finance coach, because they all get in the shit, their relationship coach, because they all get in the shit. And they become like your kids. So, but what was happening was everyone would say, go and see the old grey hair git in the corner. He'll tell you what to do and help solve your problems. And I loved that role. I loved the responsibility. I loved the permissions that I was given to help these people and help affect their lives and shape their futures. Now, later on, I always wanted to coach, and I was very lucky to find a college that resonated with me. But actually, almost made it even easier, because when it comes to coaching, it's actually nothing to do with me. I don't have to solve their problems. You are the expert at your life. You know what you want. You know what's stopping you. I'm just the guide. It's almost like an art of how I can get you along the path and get you over the things for you to reach where you want to reach. Now, I might have an idea where that is, but it's not for me to say. It's your life. So I'm here to serve you. And it's almost an extension of what I've done all my career, but now in a different guise, but using very, very similar tools, plus all the NLP and other things I do. I've now got a huge toolbox and a whole life of experience to guide you and mentor you to become the best version of yourself, the same as I did from a healing perspective with the soldiers.
But like that, you see, because so many people, Nigel, would have maybe during the pandemic found a guru speaking with a very loud voice, and then they walked over a bunch of calls, and then they came back with a few workbooks, and they called themselves coaching now, because anyone with a pair of sweatpants, a sweatshirt, and a laptop can literally just start zooming and talking to people. But you have this lived experience, you have all these stories to draw from, and everything else in between, and the results of the work that you did prior are now obviously being recognized internationally, through the medals that these people are actually winning. So they're not only just winning the Olympics, but they're literally winning themselves, and that's what you're giving back to now the people. Now, in your coaching practice, you focus on, I think you call it authentic values-based leadership. All right. Yeah. I want us to just maybe touch up on that a little bit. And first of all, how do you define this, and why is it crucial for managers and business owners?
I think, a lot of people interfere or misconstrue management with leadership. Management is more about systems and structures and KPIs and everything else. But leadership is about people. Leadership is about, how do I bring my team on a journey with me as a common goal that we're going to work together as a one to get from A to B. Same as in the military, the sergeant or the officer says, right, follow me, boys. They know why they're following. They've had the brief. They know that they belong. They know their purpose in the team. They know what the mission is. A lot of builders, businesses, sorry, not builders. The guy at the top, the leader, the manager, may be an expert at what they do, but they may not be, from a professional perspective, but they may not be a people person. They may not be a leader. They may not be a motivator. They'll go and give someone a piece of paper and say, right, do that. They're not actually, there's no motivation there. There's no encouragement there. They don't feel as if the person being given the job is valued by the team. They've got no worth in the team. So it's like, as a leader, if you were my marketer, it's like coming up to you and saying, I want X, Y, Z, and I want it in this direction. I want it in these colors. That person is like, well, that's my job. That's what I do. Where's my scope within the business? Whereas to go up there and give them a brief and say, well, this is what we're trying to achieve. You're the expert. What do you need from me for you to achieve your job, the task I'm giving you? So do you need more support? Do you need more training? Do you need software? Do you need how much time do you need? And it's making these people feel valued and belonging within a team. And they do the job all day, every day. So why don't you ask them what they need rather than you as a leader going down and saying, right, we're changing this and we're going to move all of this and we're going to. They're like, well, if you'd have asked me, actually, all I needed was a new a screen on the computer would have helped me massively. But they never get asked. So they don't, in the end, they don't bother offering advice or offering tips or offering suggestions. So how do you get the team to come on together? And that's where I'm really good. I did it in the military with leading teams. I did it on battlefields. I did it in the Olympics. My medical team was 800 volunteers, from unpaid volunteers, from trauma orthopedic surgeons down to retired first aiders. But I didn't need to tell them their job. I just created an environment where they could be the best of themselves. They could bring their A game to the team because I gave them the environment to perform. And that's what I'm trying to bring to leaders. It's the values of creating a team, all on the same course, all working towards the same way, all having something that they can bring to the team so they feel as if they belong and their voice is heard. And it makes a huge difference for high performance teams, that productivity goes up, morale goes up. You don't lose people because, if it's a horrible place to work, people leave. But you're losing all your IP, you're losing all your technical ability, or you're losing relationships. If you can keep those people and get the most out of them, they'll stay for life. So it's that values of parenting. Like if you've got your kids, how can I educate them? How can I instill values in them? How can I build work? How can I build two-way communication? But that's only whilst they're with you. But you want to give them the tools that when they then progress in their career or move forward, that they've got everything that they need to be the best version. But it doesn't mean you stop being the parent and being the advisor and being the leader. When something's wrong, they'll quite happily, if you've got that relationship, you come back and go, Dad, I'm struggling. Dad, how did you cope with this? And you're forever teaching, but you're allowing them to be the best versions of themselves. And that's what I do.
Interesting, because if you would look at it, in the 25 years that you were in the military, you were exposed to so many different scenarios where you had to think on your feet and actually react while keeping everybody else around you safe. Whereas around here, the only thing that could happen is maybe people can't find the cloud where their data is stored. Now, how do you draw parallels to those high stakes environments to like the everyday work environment, without you losing your yourself in the process?
I really get people to focus on who they would love to be. I mean, a lot of people, we go into jobs, we go into careers, and it's just, I fell into the job, or, I became an electrician because my dad was an electrician. But when you start breaking it down, as a medic, taking clinical history, and they go, I always had a passion for this and I always envisaged myself being this type of person. And that's what really ignites me. And it's like, okay, so when was the last time you did it? And they went, oh, shit, I haven't done that in years. And they forget themselves. They forget the person. And they forget because they become a parent and they become a dad. And it's like, well, I've got to just put money on the table so there's food on the table. And, I've got a role and I'm not me anymore. And I've got to think of others before me. But how much are you actually giving to your family if you don't know who you are and you're not being rewarded, if you know what I mean, or stimulated? So it's actually helping people find out what really makes them tick. And if you can get them passionate about themselves again, they'll be passionate about their business. They'll be passionate about their job. And now that they've had loads of things that they can do for themselves and they're being fulfilled, when they do have to be the parent or the husband or the boss, it's not at the detriment of themselves. They can give more. So it's really finding people's purpose, really finding out what makes them tick. And then as a leader, what's the best way for them to be authentic? How can they come across within their own personality and not try and pretend to be somebody else? And then it comes across so, how false it becomes, and the team are like, don't believe a word he's saying. Why would I follow him? It's not real. I don't believe in them. So go and be yourself. Go and be the best version of yourself. Go and inspire people, and I help them find the best voice for them, so they can bring their team on the journey, but in their way. And it makes life so much simpler when they're not pretending.
I like that. I like that because so many people are giving off their representative, and they want people to connect with that person without actually connecting with themselves. So who benefits from this authentic values-based leadership training, and how long does it take?
I work with businesses, so I go into businesses and I help businesses, and I work with the leaders initially, because if you can affect any change in a business, it has to start at the top. If the values and the culture is not coming from the top, then it's impossible for the guys at the bottom to implement something new. So it's working with the leaders, get them that authentic voice, find out what they actually want, and how they can best disseminate that to the staff. Even know what the vision is, what the mission is, where we're going as a business. It's like the captain of a ship. You trust that person that he knows where the destination is, but you all know you're going there. A lot of staff go in, they do 9 to 5 and know nothing about the business. They don't care. So I want to create stakeholders where people go, do you know what? If we only had this in our department, we could make so much more change. We could improve performance. But getting that two-way relationship. So many people talk about open door policy. Oh, we have an open door policy. But every time one of the staff members goes to the door and says, oh, by the way, we've got a problem, or I've got an idea, the boss is like, oh, I'm too busy. Yeah, come back tomorrow. They never come back. So you're just silent something that could actually really make a difference within your business. And they're coming in because they care. They're not going to bother caring. I worked at Joondalup Hospital here for a short period of time, and I used to talk to a guy, and I just plonked my backside down on the table and was having a general conversation. And I said, come on then, if you were going to change something about this department, what would you change? Would you need another desk or another VDU, or what was it? What would make a difference? And he just laughed at me. And I said, what are you laughing for? And he went, Nigel, I've been here for 12 years. He said, I must have had about 8 different managers, and not one person has ever asked me that question. Every manager has come in and told me what they're going to change to make their statement. I'm the boss, so you'll do as I tell you. But I've always known none of it would ever work. So they're just wasting their money and wasting their time. If they'd have only asked me, we could make this significant change, and it doesn't even cost any money. So you're wasting all of that, what we call SME, subject matter experts. Those people do the job all day, every day. It's what they're trained to do. They know where you can help them and where they can't. But if you don't ask them, they're not going to offer it. So having a leader that's more authentic and going out and talking to the team, going out and engaging, going out and building relationships with their staff. The staff, if you start a general casual conversation, next minute they're offering you gold, because the boss is down on the floor talking to me. Oh my God, I matter. I didn't think he even knew my name, or, and now all of a sudden that person, next time you go down, is going, oh yeah, we're doing really well at this. Thanks so much for fixing that printer. That saved us so much time. It's like, yeah, no problems. That's what I'm here for. Next minute, everyone's working together. So many bosses sit in their office behind the laptop because they're swamped with paperwork and they think they're serving the business. Why not get away from the laptop? Why not go and mix with your team? It's not time off. They're your team. They work with you. Without them, you can't do what you're doing. So go and take time off. Get away from the VDU. Go and decompress, if you know what I mean. And go and talk to the floor. Go and build relationships. The guys will give you more gold than you'll ever come up with on your own. A collective brain is better than you having to think you have to have the answers for everything. Mm-hmm. And these people, now knowing that the boss has taken their idea on, is going to go, oh, great, that was amazing. He actually trusted me. Oh, I've got so many more ideas that could help improve. Change happens, but it's collectively. And that's what I try and build. That's why I call it leadership teams and culture, because if you work on the leader and they then build that relationship with their team, people stay. And the team starts to work. Now you've got a leader and a team working together. What happens? You get a positive culture, but it starts from the top.
Love it, love it, love it. And how long do you take people on this journey?
Normally I work with businesses for 6 months.
Okay.
And go in there sort of for the first 3 months, maybe every week for a couple of hours, and really work on structure, work on operations, work on leadership, work on coaching, work on relationships. What is their clear vision? Do people know that? How do we build togetherness, if you know what I mean, and a team? But then for the second 3 months, maybe every fortnight, and it's more of how has it gone implementing that? What changes have you seen? How could we, brainstorm that? Did we have group meetings where we invite people from different departments and we brainstorm, take ideas, and it's building that collective, collaborative environment, and then hopefully, once that coaching period is stopped, whether it be 3 months, 6 months, or a year, I stay on as an advisor and I go in every month. And we have that, this is what we're doing and we're struggling in this. How do you think, can you give us some advice on how to move forward? And I just stay connected with the business because I've built such a relationship with them and trust that they always want to just run their ideas through me before implementing to make sure they're doing it to the best of their ability. So that's how I work with businesses, and it's very, very fluid.
Like that. 6 months is a reasonable, it's a small price to pay. If you really want to have a business that's sustainable, profitable, and manageable. Now, obviously, we've heard your Olympic success stories, from people that were half past, dead to running the Olympics or competing in the Olympics. Maybe you've got any other sort of success stories that you've had that you transformed maybe a business or a leader, without obviously mentioning names, just so we can solidify, what you're now doing, especially using your authentic value-based sort of leadership. If there's any sort of, transformation that really stands out to you where you'd be like, wow, I really, really changed something here.
Yeah, I had a young man that came along to a network function, and I didn't even really get to talk to him at the time. We all got up and did our little pitches as you do, for 30 seconds to a minute. And then funny enough, he never really spoke on the day, but I got a message from him in the afternoon and booked an appointment to see me. But again, that was the first time he'd been out of his department in 7 years in working hours. He had a printing company that he owned with a friend, and they literally did everything themselves from front end to back end, taking the orders to doing the packing and everything in between. And they just flogged themselves. So if a job needed to go out and they were there from 7 a.m, they could be there at 12 at night, if that's what needed to get it out for the business. But he just falling out of love with that. He was spending weekends almost comatose on the couch. His wife was working weekends. His young son was in his room doing things, and he had no energy, he had no purpose. He'd lost all the passion. So we worked together literally just for 3 months, and and we reinvented the business. We put structure in the business. He had a couple of young lads. So they were like 30, 40-year-old guys, but there was a young lad as the assistant who didn't fit in. He had his typical headphones in while he was working, and never the twain shall meet, and didn't talk. So he naturally left, but we got people in of the same ilk, the same age, the same maturity. And all of a sudden there was a team that had things in common. They had the music on. There was an older music, which is where I would be. And always there was a banter. They had similar stories, similar careers, similar family lives, and the team got better. But my client himself, we turned his role around within the business. He was much more creative. He was very design orientated. He was very client orientated. So instead of doing the physical work, we got him doing relationships with clients. Whereas they used to hire someone to go and fit things in businesses once they'd made it as a printing firm. He started, I got him to go out and do it. So he was building, he'd never seen the clients. Everything was just via email and phone. So now he's out with the clients, he's meeting, he's building rapport, relationships. And what happens? The guys were going, Oh, we also need that doing. Do you do that? Yeah, we do that. Not a problem. I'll quote you for. He won more business. So turnover went through the roof. He was happier. It turned out that he hadn't had a holiday in 9 years, hadn't taken any long service leave, hadn't taken time off because the business just had to run. It was swamping his life. So in the end, after we finished, 3 months later, he said, me, the wife, and my son, we're going to go and travel America for 6 months. We've taken time out. We're going to go and homeschool my son. And we're going to go out and we're going to travel and we're going to reconnect. And they did. And it was beautiful. And the wife ended up, she's a pharmacy technician, but she'd always wanted to teach. So now she's homeschooling her son and she's come back and changed her career. They've moved house. He's changed job into another job where he's actually doing what he loves within the industry he thought he was going to leave.
Wow.
Because he'd lost his passion for it. Now, I've had an effect on the man, the business, his relationship with his wife, and the future for his son. Even to the fact that his son was learning to play guitar and he used to play piano. He hadn't played piano for years. His parents bought him an old 60s like acoustic organ, and now they have a family band. But it was a passion of his that was dead. Now him and his son sit and play and jam at weekends. And his dad comes across, who was the original guitarist, and now there's a three-piece.
Wow.
You know, if they make a record, I'm going to take royalties, but there we go. But it's not just coaching as far as a business. You coach the individual as a person, because you can't be a business leader if there's shit going on in your home life. You can't be a business, you can't be good at home if the business isn't going well. So it's a whole holistic coaching. So I get to do my one-to-ones as a personal coach, but also from a leadership perspective, the leaders are people. So it encompasses everything really for them to be the best version of themselves whole life.
Absolutely. You're literally giving people back their lives. You did that in the army, you did that with the Olympics, and now you're doing that with the authentic value-based leadership, because so many people just go through life. You know what I mean? They just grow up, go to school, go to university. There's nothing that sort of punctuates their existence, and what they need is maybe a checkup from the neck up, which I think you are providing in that sort of instance, or somewhat of a pattern break, which really gets somebody to stop, look at it from a vantage point, and literally see what they've been missing out on. Because that 6 month holiday that your client went on and took, that's something that a lot of people will die to at least achieve, even just having 6 hours break from their business. Not a lot of people can have the words freedom and finance in the same sentence, because they're caught up with their business and everything else that comes along with it. Now, for those that are uninitiated, or those that haven't tasted, the Thai effect, so to speak, what would be the best way that people can get a hold of you, sir?
My email, my business is called Growth Evolution Coaching. So growthevolution.com.au or nigel@growthevolution.com.au. Very happy to have, I've worked on Zoom. I do hypnosis and that as well. I've even done hypnosis via Zoom with people. So I've had clients from Poland to America to the UK. So more than happy to help people. I've helped CEOs and CFOs of individuals. I've helped relationships and life transformations. Even, funny enough, would you believe, ADHD kids or kids that are unsure of their purpose. Parents are very much, oh, you'd be good at this. This is what you need to do. And they've got that, but no one's listening. So it's even helping them find their purpose or something that they're going to be passionate about, to want to go to work every day and do, because it's who they are, what they are. And unlike most of us that fall into a profession who almost forget what makes us tick, because we become role orientated. So that's what I do.
Fantastic. I mean, I will definitely make sure that I put all those links in the show notes below. And I was just looking up to see if we're connected on LinkedIn, just so that I can also use that as a place to be. Whoa, what a journey, man.
Yeah,
You know, from the Air Force to being a civilian, and now you're literally giving people back their lives. Wouldn't you say this is
yeah,
full circle? Because when you were holding that drip for that soldier who was almost, battling for his life, and you're just telling him, hang in there. And now you're giving people back to their kids, back to their wives, and back to their businesses.
yeah.
That's
I think it's knowing, again, it's values based, it's family based, building a business that's a family, creating a family environment where they're all connected and they're all doing things together. It's just bringing joy back to people, and taking that unneeded stress that a business owner feels that they have to be the expert at every element of their business. They have to solve every problem. They have to work the longest hours, be the first in and the last one out. It's like, no, you don't. You've got a team of experts. If you use them and say, look, how can you help me in this aspect of the business? Because I'm stuck. You're the expert. You're the SME. What do you need from me to be able to do this role to the best of the ability and solve my problem for me? Oh, Christ, thanks for the responsibility. Yeah, I can do that. No problems. Thanks, boss. And off they go, and they'll give you everything because they're now a stakeholder. They're valued. You've listened. They've got a voice. They're on the journey with you because now what you're trying to achieve matters. And it's the same in life. As a parent, as a father, both of us, I'm sure, you take on that pet father role. You take on the spouse role, if you know what I mean. And as a parent, you want to be the archetypal type to make sure everyone is safe. But unless you're doing something that you're passionate about and you're refilling your cup, what are you actually giving to your family if you're operating from a level of lack? So taking time out for you is not against the family. You're only helping the family, but you've never classed yourself as a priority.
Oh, absolutely. You see, when you're flying, I know you've flown a military jet before, but when you're flying in economy, they tell you to put your mask on first, and so that you be able to help those that are.
Perfect metaphor. Perfect metaphor. Because you can't help anyone if you can't help yourself first. If you're suffocating, your family aren't breathing, or your business isn't breathing. So how can we all work together? Because collaborative minds are better than one. And if you're not doing it, another business will be, and they'll be moving past you.
All right. But now for you, flying a military jet, you have to have that mask on you all the time, right?
Yep.
Tell us about.
And I had the privilege of doing that, funny enough.
Yes. How did that go for you?
Oh, it was a leaving present for the unit I was at the time was a fighter training school. And they used to fly like the Hawk aircraft, which is the beginner plane for fast jets. And if you know the British Air Force, you know that the Red Arrows are the display team, the best in the world by far. And it's one of those aircraft. And I happened to be the captain of the cricket team for the station because that was my sport. And one of my guys was a pilot, so he took me up as my leaving present when I was posted to another unit. And we're flying around, and obviously he's doing all the aerobatics to try and make me sick, which he did. But then all of a sudden, we're flying through the hills of the Snowdonian Mountains in Wales. And he says, have you got hold of the joystick? I went, no, don't worry, I won't touch it. He said, well, best you do, because I haven't. And I went, serious? And he went, yeah, off you go. So, but all the sickness went when I knew where I was going. Do you know what I mean? So like Top Gun, where you're banking right, you're banking left or whatever, you're going in that direction. So you're not sick, When he's doing it and he's moving it like this far and you're pulling 4G each way, you can't see that from behind. So all you do is get swallow.
Yeah, you get the
yeah. But it was just an honor. I knew I was going to be sick. I don't have that strong a stomach for roller coasters, let alone a jet. But I was never going to turn up the experience. But yeah, the control that you have, you know, was just so much fun. But again, you know, if you don't take control of your life, someone else is going to lead you, and you will become sick. But the fact is, it's not where you want to go. So it's a metaphor for what we do as well.
Absolutely. Well, this has been, I think, not an episode, but a masterclass in life and everything else that comes along with it. So, Nigel, I can't thank you enough for spending the time with us here. Like I told you earlier on, man, you owe us a book. Most of the stories that you've experienced, your life story and your experience have so much value for a lot of people. Even this whole Maverick episode that we just went on, we were just talking about you flying, but there's a lesson in that. If you're not in charge, if you're not in control, and you don't know where the next turn is going to be, everything is just just sounds too much for you. I think it was
Everyone is like a sheep at the moment.
yeah.
You know, we're running lives as sheep because I have to be seen to be earning X because all my friends are, and I can't be looked as if I'm poor, and I have to drive a certain car, so they're all in debt because so and so's got a car or a Tesla nowadays or whatever it is. And we're all like sheep, and we're just trying to pretend that we're all up with the Joneses. Do you know that phrase?
Yeah.
Keeping up with the Joneses. Whereas actually no one has got the strength to live their own life. And what does value and wealth and prosperity and authenticity mean to you that's going to give you joy in your life? Sod everybody else. It's not their life. What do you want that's going to make you feel $1 million? Doesn't have to be $1 million. But what do you and your family need to have that life of $1 million? Because it's not monetary. It's gratitude. It's appreciation. It's love. It's all of those things. So you could have the same people living a better life on 100K, 50K than you have someone who's earning $1 million. But it's what means something to you. And I try and get people back to their core. What makes them tick? What makes them smile? And what's going to keep them happy for the rest of their future, knowing that their purpose matters.
I like that. I like that. So many people are masquerading as public successes while they're private failures, and they literally have no direction, so to speak. And they're just holding on to somebody who's got the joystick and is just making them sick all over themselves. Now, Nigel, if we don't put a cap on this, then this will be yet another episode on this.
Well, this is part one then. No.
I really enjoyed and was really fascinated by you sharing your incredible journey and the insights that you've had for us. It's been a pleasure having you on the Online Prosperity Show, man. Like, no doubt.
No, it's been a pleasure for me as well. It's been a great chat. Thank you.
Fantastic. And for those that are watching right now, thank you so much for tuning in. I mean, obviously, you wouldn't have been if this wasn't of value to you. So I encourage you to subscribe to this channel just so that you do not miss out on, I'm not calling them episodes anymore. These are master classes in life, because when are you going to find people like Nigel that have been, in the military, have watched their clients and people go through the Olympics and now helping other people do and have a happier existence, not just profit or bigger business or higher, revenues or things like that, but a holistic way of being. So if you want to connect with Nigel and explore his coaching services, be sure to check out the show notes for all the details. I'll make sure that all those links are in there. But until next time, this has been Prosper and Nigel. We're signing.